Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
So, I'm a Midwestern white guy of Scottish descent. If I get too much sun, I'll explode in plate flames. I'm so white that my wife and kids, who are Mexican by the way, make family barbecues interesting. I have been known to harness the power of my whiteness when police are called because a birthday party for an 8-year-old niece or nephew gets out of hand. Now that we have that out of the way, one of my Mexican sons marries a Guatemalan woman. Needless to say, they speak a lot of Spanish. Occasionally, I find myself out with my daughter-in-law, and as a South American woman, she absolutely cannot function without a high enough coffee-to-blood ratio. So, we are sitting in a certain mermaid-themed coffee shop in a mall, having a conversation in Espanol. Have you ever wondered how you know if the person who says, "This is America, we speak English here" is a racist prick or just a lazy, self-entitled prick? Well, it's moments like this when the racist prick sees two people having a private conversation in Spanish and walks by the white guy to harass a pregnant Latin woman. Now, anybody who has ever met a Latina knows that you piss them off at your own risk. This is a good way to find out if a high-heeled shoe can be absorbed directly. I will neither confirm nor deny that I already know the answer to this question. When you piss off a Latina, you will get no help from others. They know better. They also do not want to get any of you on them when they start ripping your vital organs out of your own mouth. So, this racist sea hag hitches up her Lupita, clutches her Michael Kors bag, struts past me, bends right down in my daughter-in-law's face, and screams at the top of her lungs. "Speak English or go back where you came from. You people are destroying this country." My daughter-in-law stands on the bed without a word, slaps the Gucci sunglasses right off her face, and she sits back down. She hangs her head, spins around, takes the time to look around, and lays down on the ground, screaming at the top of her lungs at this foreign immigrant terrorist who had assaulted her for no reason. "Call the police! Call the army!" The sea hag's husband comes running over and is just about to get in my daughter-in-law's face when I stand up. Let's just say that I absolutely dwarf this guy. I stand over 6 feet tall, have a beard down to my chest, and I pick heavy things up and put them down again in my spare time. As a result, I tip the scales north of 300 pounds, and each of my thighs is larger than my daughter-in-law's waist. She's maybe 5'6" and weighs maybe around 125 pounds. I take one look at this guy and he goes whiter than he already was, and I say, "Think very hard. Any part of you that touches her, I'm going to break off and force-feed it to you. Now go away and take that thing with you," as I point to the sea hag. They slink off to sit in a booth on the other side of the coffee shop. Naturally, someone has called the police, who show up in short order. The sea hag immediately launches into her speech about how she was just minding her own business, and out of nowhere this crazed terrorist attacked her, and that red-bearded race traitor beat the hell out of her husband and laughed at him. She thinks his nose might be broken. They both need to be in jail now. The second cup comes over to our table and my daughter-in-law turns on the waterworks. A crazy woman started screaming at me. I was just defending myself. She places a hand on her stomach and says, "And my baby," and also defending my baby. I summon my powers of whiteness and tell the officer, "I'm certain this place has cameras. There are at least a dozen witnesses to that woman's screaming tirade. And I assure you that my daughter-in-law will not be answering any more of your questions without her attorney present." The cops take a few minutes to talk to a couple of other people, look at the security footage, and come back to tell us that while the daughter-in-law probably shouldn't have slapped the sea hag, it's pretty clear that it was in self-defense. While they will be filing out a report, they won't be arresting anyone. Long story with background. This incident occurred last month. First and foremost, English isn't my first language. Second, I will post the story that happened in court first and then the backstory. Back in July, I was served with court papers by the local sheriff. I opened it and it listed my ex-girlfriend Clara as a plaintiff. I got on the phone with her brother, who to this day is a still good friend of mine, to see what is up with his sister. He's in no contact with his sister due to the drama that unfolded in our breakup, but talks to his dad and takes care of him. So he called him up. He had told his dad that I had quit my job, left the Tidewater area, and was semi-retired. The dad then informed his daughter of this and made it sound like I'm just absolutely loaded. He told her to make sure that our daughter is in my will. I posted on r/legal about this issue and hired a local attorney, and also put him in contact with the attorney who drafted the will. Here comes court time. There is my attorney and myself on the defendant side and only Clara on the plaintiff side. The local judge is an older lady. The judge says, "Miss Clara, what do you have here today? The way this was filled didn't give us much to go by. Does he owe you back child support?" "No, Miss Judge. Child support stopped 10 years ago." "Well, Miss Judge, I want to make sure that my daughter is well taken care of after he kicks the bucket." The judge tells her, "By the way, it's not Miss, it's Your Honor. How do you plan on making sure your daughter is taken care of?" "Well, Miss, I demand his will be read. And if my daughter isn't in it, then you need to make sure she's in it." The judge, rolling her eyes a little at this point, and says, "Mr. Sweet, I see you hired Joe as your attorney." I say, "Yes, Your Honor." "That's fantastic. Mr. Joe, do you have the document in question by any chance?" Joe tells her my client spoke to the plaintiff's brother and found out that this document might be at the center of the issue. "We also have the attorney who drafted the document ready to be on video chat, Your Honor. Here is the document." Judge says, "Okay, we will take a recess while I investigate this a little bit. Miss Clara, may I please have your daughter's full name and social security number before I go, just so I have all the information?" "Yes, Your Honor. It's McKinley blah blah blah." "Thank you, please. Don't go too." Clara has this evil, crab-eating grin looking at me as a judge leaves the courtroom. 4 hours later, we get called back to the courtroom, and my ex still grinning ear to ear. The judge says, "Okay, Miss Clara, what is your daughter's current address?" Now keep in mind, I've had my clerk and the sheriff investigate this during recess. Clara, looking at the floor, and says, "Louisiana State Jail." And then where is she going to be? "Alabama Federal Jail." Long story short, she was running drugs across state lines, got into a chase in a stolen car, and then decided to shoot at state and federal agents, injuring 3 of them. She received 20 years in Louisiana and life in Alabama. Judge tells her, "Miss Clara, you brought a frivolous case in front of this court. You're not entitled to see this document. Since Mr. Sweet is alive and kicking, I didn't even read the document." "So you can't tell me how much he's getting?" "Not only will I not tell you, but you now have to pay court costs and Mr. Sweet's attorney." "Then what court do I need to file to do this?" "You can try all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they are still going to deny." Court adjourned. The total payment she's on a hook for is $5,000, since the attorney in Hampton was also collecting a fee on this. And now here's the backstory of what led us here, and no, she's not getting a single dime or a thing from our state. Clara and I met in Florida back in 1990. She was a waitress at a nearby place. One day I was leaving at the end of her shift and needed a ride to go feed her horses. So I gave her a ride, hung out, and we talked and hit it off right away. I was 20, she was 19, and a month after this, she moved in with me in my Hollywood apartment. All was going well until about 1992, when she blew through all the savings we had on horse-related products. She then got terminated from the diner while she was pregnant. The reason being she was a no-call, no-show 3 days in a row. In August of 1992, she had our daughter. By the time we had her daughter, I was working 7 days a week at 3 different job sites and barely saw them. In a week, there were 4 fatalities on 2 sites, so I quit and wanted a break. I really started to look at the financial aspects of our lives, and we were in deep trouble. Since I was working all the time, she was the one who needed to pay the rent. For the past 3 months, she hadn't paid the rent but was going to a psychic visit. We ended up moving in with her parents. Her dad made her get rid of the 2 horses and all the tech she had bought. In total, she had spent $30,000 in the 2 years we had been together, and we recuperated $8,000, which she kept in the breakup. When my daughter was born, we didn't have health insurance, so her mom said for her to go in as a single parent. A bad idea that bit me in the butt later in life. After she had the baby, Dad gets transferred to Virginia Beach. As he's in the Navy, I wanted to be closer to his son, Clara's brother, who was stationed in Norfolk. Mom and Clara moved up a month ahead of Dad and me. I get a phone call after the week of them being there that Clara wants to break up with me. Well, crap. I'm still moving up to try to patch things up and be close to my daughter. Ended up staying with Cody, Clara's brother, and we became best friends. Had McKinley every weekend and was giving my ex $125 a week for support. After a week, I stopped trying to patch things up with the ex because of how much drama she was creating. She was still in debt. I never gave her money to support the baby, but her brother was backing me as I was giving her the money. Keep in mind, between 1993 and 1995, I was making $225 a week if I didn't do any side work. Our friendly agreement came to a stop when Mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and died 4 months later. 2 weeks after Mom passed, she packed all her stuff and moved with a new boyfriend she had met a few times. He was an out-of-town welder who promised her the world if she went with him to North Carolina. Dad came back from a trip to spread his wife's ashes to an empty home. Cody is the one who broke the news to me. I had a girlfriend who is now my wife, told her the situation, and she was extremely supportive. She was on a mission to help me get my daughter back. We got married in 1996, didn't hear from Clara till 1997, and when she called, she wanted $1,800 for me to speak to my daughter. And well, I paid. I was on the phone with her for less than 5 minutes, and Clara took the phone and said, if you want more time, you're going to have to pony up more cash. Told the wife and Cody this, and they were livid. She called a few more times asking for money and pretty much told her, let's go to court. Every time she would hang up the phone, hired a private investigator and found out she was in the Tampa, Florida region. I tried to hire an attorney, but they all declined my case. I personally drove down to Tampa in 1998, got to stand in front of a family court judge for him to laugh me out of court, stating that I have no family claim. Fast forward to 2006, she's 13. Dad calls me and says McKinley is in schooling trouble as she's only in 5th grade and about to repeat it if something isn't done. Since my wife is a teacher, he feels like it will be best for her to stay with us. Wife agrees to take her in and get her psychiatrist to see if there is trauma or ADHD holding her back. This is a nightmare that followed through her stay. She stole from almost all the teachers she had, removed the safety bar on a bunk bed that led to her sister breaking her arm, kept her sisters having sex up till midnight telling them horror stories. If they didn't want to listen to them, she would physically assault them. The final straw was at 14, she got a gun from one of the local boys and proceeded to bring it home and decided to take shots at the 6-year-old. She got a few shots, but the gun jammed up and was tackled down by the babysitter. Cops were called and she was escorted to jail and then a mental hospital, where Clara had to pick her up from. Clara ended up filing for child support and was awarded $250 a month. She was hoping to go back to at least $400, but the judge told her she can only get 20% of my income. Even more nightmares came after this. 14 got charged with breaking and entering. At 14, she got charged with breaking and entering, grand larceny, and grand theft auto. At 15, she was caught having sex with a 55-year-old man. Clara tried to blackmail him but didn't work, so he went to jail. At 16, she beat a disabled kid at school who was in a wheelchair and was brought on charges. At 17, drug charges. At 18, we had a family cookbook made and I sent her a copy of it, to which she responded with an email with a picture of it burning, saying she didn't give a damn about this family crap, that's all I was a bank account to draw from. Every time she had charges brought against her, she would end up in a mental hospital. Clara would call for bail money, to which I declined every single time but made sure that she had all the help and the bill was covered, and they were pissed about that. By the age 21, she finished high school, and by the age of 24, she had 2 kids. They both ended up in foster care. By the time I was told this and tried to get custody of my grandchildren, Clara had attempted to kidnap them and the state put a squash to family having any custody. Through the past 30 years I've been put through hell and back. My wife has seen me completely broken down from this turmoil and been nothing but supportive of me. I'll be damned if she gets a thing from our estate. I'd leave something to the grandchildren, but I don't have names or locations for them yet. Hi Reddit, about 2 months ago, my wife, 38, and I, 41, learned that my stepdaughter, 16, was bullying a girl in school due to her family's financial situation, relying on free school lunch and not being able to afford necessities like a nice car. Our daughter was somewhat spoiled. We provided her with everything she needed, including an allowance and a part-time job at my small family service business. We considered ourselves middle class and indulged her with a car on her 16th birthday. Coming from a family of immigrants and having experienced poverty growing up, I was furious upon learning about the bullying, as we believed we hadn't raised her to behave that way. Despite excelling academically, she had a misguided perception of the other girl as trailer trash, which disturbed me. The girl I later discovered was hardworking and smart, supporting herself with 2 jobs and buying her own car. I confronted our daughter, emphasizing that our family's money was not solely hers, but belonged to her mom and me. Realizing I had spoiled her, we took away her latest iPhone, replacing it with my old iPhone 8, and removed her family credit card, sold her car, MacBook, and other luxuries. I insisted she find a job without nepotism, work in a minimum wage position like others her age, and I was no longer willing to give her handouts if she acted entitled. 2 months later, she is working at a fast food restaurant with us providing transportation. She barely talks to me unless she needs a ride, expressing her displeasure. My wife thinks I've gone too far, affecting our daughter's social status and grades. However, I believe she needs to be humbled, as I can't tolerate her disrespecting others based on their financial situation. I also worry about the impact of her younger sister's perception of the world. Am I the jerk for punishing my 16-year-old stepdaughter after discovering she bullied a kid for being poor? Edit. I would like to add that we took away her MacBook, but she still has access to the family computer, a powerful Windows system for school. She has Wi-Fi access, but we throttled her speed, considering high school internet a privilege. She still has sufficient speed for homework and non-HD video streaming. She isn't failing. She went from straight A's to mostly B's and 2 A's, which I still consider great. Edit number 2. This post gained attention and I want to clarify some things. Yes, we are upper middle class, living comfortably but not as multi-millionaires. I've practically raised her since she was 4, as her biological dad left when she was 2. My wife helps run the business and we jointly decide on punishments. We talked to the family, had her apologize to the girl at school, and required her to do 5 hours of community service as part of the school's anti-bullying policy. We didn't force her to get a job. She wanted one for socializing and personal expenses. We cut her off from her $15 per hour receptionist job due to non-nepotism rules. We warned her that if her grades suffered, she'd have to quit her job and focus on school. And now with some comments on the post. Someone saying, definitely not the jerk. And I'm proud of you for standing up to your stepdaughter and giving her a taste of what life is really like. You may just saved her from that path to hell that she was on. She acts very privileged and entitled from what you described. It's good for her to see how the other half lives. I'm sure it's very eye-opening for her. I will continue this path for at least a year, so she does not slide back. Hopefully you will have a much more respectful and kind stepdaughter. It really is too bad other parents do not do more stuff like this to their children, instead of spoiling them rotten and then wonder why they are in jail. Good for you. Another commenter adds, not a jerk. It's important to teach your daughter the value of empathy and respect for others, regardless of their financial situation. By holding her accountable for her actions and making her experience the consequences of her behavior, you're teaching her a valuable life lesson. It may be tough for her now, but in the long run, this will help her become a better person. The third commenter goes with, not the jerk. As for your wife, she needs to get a clue. Taking away and selling her luxury items and making her work a typical teenage job is not affecting her grades. Her grades come from the effort she puts in. By dropping her grades, she figured she could get the punishments to end. I'm sorry she was spoiled and entitled in the first place, but glad you took real issue with it. In the end, I hope these life lessons shape who she becomes. Buckle up for at least a rocky year.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.